Hello everyone, it's Nate Jackson, the Criterion Collection person guy. In 1982, Shalimar released their fifth album called Friends on the Solar label, and the hit single went something like this. When you let someone it's natural, not maddening, and that's one thing I'm proud to find in you. I'm so glad we reached an understanding. Now I know my heart is free with you. So now my love to you, baby, I surrender. Tonight, gonna make this a night to remember. Get ready to play tonight. Gonna make this a night to remember. Celebration. Alright, that's enough of that. I've been dying to do that for you ever since, I saw this movie. Totally inappropriate, yeah, considering this movie is about the sinking of the Titanic. Yes, A Night to Remember, 1958. 123 minutes, black and white, moral, directed by Roy Ward Baker. This is number 7, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're at number 7, yeah. So, Night to Remember. This one's kind of hard to talk about because it's basically about the Titanic. It's about something that actually happened and, true story. And, well, it's actually based on a book called The Night to Remember, written by, what is the guy's name? What is the guy's name? Where is his name? It's not printed on here. William Ford. Bill Ford, I think. Walter Lord. Walter Lord, that's his name. Wrote a book in the 50s, I think, called The Night to Remember, and he just was interested and fascinated with the story of the Titanic. And movies have been made about the Titanic before, but this guy really did his research and went out and found survivors and all kinds of stuff before writing the book. And and then Roy Thomas Baker said, "Hey, let's make this movie. You done good, kid." So here it is, Night to Remember. One thing you'll note about this is that none of the players are stars. None of the actors or actresses or anybody, remotely famous, I think, at the time. And that's what kind of drew people away from it a little bit. But a lot of people still stayed because the movie was horrendously accurate. It was just very true. I mean, there were a couple of things that I know that weren't, totally true. For instance, it's well known now that the Titanic split in half at one point, and they didn't do that in the movie. But there's a lot that's covered, and it's all through. I want to talk about not Roy Thomas Baker. I got music on my mind. That's the producer, Roy Ward Baker. I knew I'd have trouble with that name. Just seeing Roy Ward Baker, it's like, no, the name of the guy who produced the Queen albums? No, that's not him. It's not a name. No. But anyway, Roy Ward Baker. So this guy knows how to direct a movie. This guy is very dramatic. It's very reminiscent of something like Citizen Kane. It's almost on Citizen Kane, like Orson Welles kind of stuff. I mean, just like attention to detail, all kinds of stuff like that. It's just very, like the scenes that, like when they show like still scenes, just as the Titanic gets hit by the iceberg, and like the scene like with the rocking horse just standing still, and I'm like, oh god, that's gonna come into play later. Sure enough, there's the scene where like all the, when it starts to tip, like there's the scene with the tray of food that rolls down and smashes all the tables, and then finally smashes all the dishes off the shelf, and then the rocking horse that comes at you kind of because it's sliding toward the camera. It's just eerie stuff. The actors are very, the actors do their part, of course. But like I said, a lot of it I think comes from the direction, and a lot of it comes from the fact that all the details, all the different people, all kinds of people were like everybody. Let's put it like this: every viewpoint was put in this movie. It was from the viewpoint of every person that, every type of person that could have been the scared mother, the scared child, the angry immigrant, there's so many things, such as the scene, and of course the crew who were, very, very protective of themselves. For instance, there's a scene where there's a guy's trying to get off the boat and needs a lifeboat, and so he runs into the cabin of one of the radio signalers or whatever, the Morse coders, and he tries to steal him, and he tried to make peace with him, and the guys beat him, and it's horrible. I mean, it's horrible, but it's glad they kept it in because it's true. And I'm sure that's it's every man for himself after a point. Once they spent about half an hour on the whole women and children thing before they finally said every man for himself, and then it just went crazy. That's when all hell breaks loose, pretty much. So there's that. There's also the detail as far as the just detail the scene with the what's the name of that boat? Guess how you know? It's just the Carpathia. They're just the way that they react to the news. The man who just kind of saunters in after eating. I think he's eating something, and he just kind of picks up the SOS signal, and the way he rushes to the captain's. The captain's just that gets your heart a pumping. He's like, yeah, you want to go help him? Go get that Titanic, that kind of thing. So there's that, and just apart from that, there's just, like I said, can't really talk about the plot or anything. Can't really, I'm good at summarizing plot, sadly, but that's pretty much it. But I can talk about everything. I can quote from the book. Let's see, blah blah blah. Near my God to thee. Yeah, they play Near My God to Thee. As the ship is sinking, the musicians kept playing after a point until the lead violinist keeps playing, and then they come back in and they're like, now we're going down with you. Andrews is the character. I think he's the pastor, and he goes down with the ship. I think with the captain. He and Andrews and I think the Captain Smith, John Smith, I think is his name. They went down with the ship, and I loved his direction because Andrews, just after a while, he's just this very quiet, spoken person, and he just, once he realizes that the ship's gonna sink, he just kind of just takes it in, just goes down, and he just sits at this desk at the end, just before everything pretty much goes haywire, and he just sits there, and everybody just, and this guy comes in, he's like, come on, there's still a chance, and he's like, and so he leaves him, and he just sits there, and he walks around, and he sees that painting that says, what is it, A Gateway to the New World, which, God, that was a nice detail. Zoom in on his looking at the painting was really, really nice. So yeah, there's a lot of good points about it, and that's pretty much it. That's all I got for you. I give it an A. It's a great movie. It's well detailed, well directed. It's a just harrowing story of something that came true, and of course the last line that they'd never be sure of anything ever again, and it shows, it really just displays the arrogance. I mean, the way that the first class passengers react and how they keep them calm, and of course how the way the ship, the crew underneath, in the engine room react. It's just the reactions are just great, and yeah, it's just the individual. It's about the individual, and each individual speaks volumes in just maybe a couple lines, a couple words, maybe a couple of tears, if they're crying or screaming for their family. It just says so much. So, and that's what makes this movie such a wonderful portrayal of the Titanic. And while I haven't seen the 1998 version, I bet you it's way better. Even though Kate Winslet's in it, she's pretty friggin' hot. So maybe someday I'll look at that one. though it isn't on the Criterion collection. I don't think so. Probably not. Maybe someday. It probably will be someday, but for now it isn't. So there you go. For now, all we got is A Night to Remember, and that's as Titanic as we'll ever get in this series. Anyway, Night to Remember A plus. I mean A. No, not A plus. A. So let's talk about the supplements, which sometimes dragged on little bits, just a little bit. There are four basic supplements. There's The Making of A Night to Remember, 1993, a 60-minute documentary featuring producer William McQuitty's rare behind-the-scenes footage. There's interviews. Yeah, they interviewed William McQuitty, the producer, and Walter Lord, who was, I guess, still alive at the time, and the writer of the book, and he talks about his experiences, his things he remembers, and they show a lot of archival footage, like behind the scenes making of, like the scenes, between the takes and all that, which is kind of nice. But after a while, it just feels like, bad home movies, kind of, because the quality isn't the greatest, and just the narration is a little sluggish, a little run-on. The way they speak is a little sluggish and run-on, so it's just a little hard to grasp what was really happening. So apart from that, can't really say much about that one. It was very intriguing at times, but a little long. The next one is an archival interview with Titanic survivor Eva Hart. It's about 23-minute interview, and this was really cool. She was one of the last surviving survivors. And the interview was done in 1990, but she died in 1996. So she was like, I think 91 or something, I think, at the time. Don't quite remember. So, yeah, her interview, she was very just like, she remembered a lot, and she was very, I think, like, she was one of those interviewees that the Criterion collection, dug for. She is one of those people that made the Criterion collection just, come in their pants, for lack of a better term. So they had to put that on there. And I'm surprised they didn't build it up a little bit, because a little bit more. Because what she was remembering things and all that, and talking about different aspects like the panic and the musicians and what she was doing afterwards and all that. So nice little. And the next one was a little bad, a little weird. Is En Not At Minas, from 1962, a half-hour Swedish documentary featuring interviews with Titanic survivors. Now this is another thing that makes the Criterion collection just go, anything in a foreign language. They love it. They love that stuff, of course, as we well know, and as we will continue to know, but we'll get to that later. This is a half-hour documentary, of course, it was produced in Sweden, so it's all in Swedish with English subtitles, and it features interviews with 3 Swedish survivors who were on the Titanic. And it was done in 1960, so they were all dead by, of course, by the time this was made back in. Well, this was produced in 2012, so yeah, this edition. This is, of course, the one with all the supplements. I don't know if the older edition of it had these supplements or had any supplements, but anyway. There were things that, I skipped through a lot of it because a lot of it was just scenes from the movie that I'd already seen with, Swedish subtitles over it. So I was like, I need to see that again. I just got to see what they were saying, and it was kind of hard to watch too because I felt like that interviewer was trying to make them cry. I was trying to dig for details, and and make these people cry. And at one point, there's a guy who's reading a poem about the sinking, and they cut over to the three women, and they've got tears in their eyes, and it's like, God, I don't want to see this. Is horrible. You know, I mean, of course, I mean, I can understandably, it was a horrible experience, but it was just like, gosh, this is just kind of painful. I mean, it was painful. It was kind of painful to watch. And at the end, there was some song I couldn't even listen to that song. Some woman was singing, I think it was a French song, and like, I couldn't even listen to that. That was, you know, yeah, how I react to music. Yeah, that's a whole other thing. So yeah, and then the last thing that was on here is a BBC natural world documentary called "The Iceberg That Sank the Titanic" in 2006. This has nothing to do with the movie. It's about the iceberg, and that's pretty much all I can say because it had nothing to do with the movie. It was just about the iceberg, and they added it because they're the freaking Criterion Collection. That's why. That's why they added this kind of stuff. And so, on that note, we're gonna stop because that's all I got. I mean, Night to Remember is a great movie. It was gripping. Wasn't, you know, it was kind of gripping. I mean, any light humor, very, very light humor, you know, and only to bring you into that real moment of despair and horror and all that. So this is one that you got to check out at some point, you know, especially if you want to know about the Titanic. A pretty cool description or depiction of the Titanic, rather. And that's it. And of course, the booklets. Blah 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 blah. It's just essay. And there you have it. Number 8 will be coming probably maybe next week. Yeah, probably next week. I know I've been kind of lacking on updating this, but probably sometime next week. The Killer. Now, my library does not have the Criterion Collection edition of The Killer, but they do have like a normal edition of The Killer, which I hope has English subtitles, because otherwise I'm gonna be screwed. And the one at my local library, the one I work at, has it with just Chinese subtitles, or just kind of like, okay. Actually, I gotta check on that. Maybe it'll work. But anyway, so I'm gonna look into the Criterion Collection website after this and find out if there are any supplements. Then I'm just gonna go ahead and do the new movie, because you know that's pretty much all you have to do. I'm just gonna review the movie, because if there's nothing else to talk about it, then we'll worry about it. But otherwise, you have to shell some money out and do a supplements video later. But for now, you know, hopefully we get to at least be able to do the movie. Then after that, I don't know what's after that. I think it's another John Woo movie. But yeah, so The Killer's next. Another, I think it's Chinese, Japanese. I don't remember. I think it's Chinese. So yes, that's the plan. So Night to Remember has nothing to do with the Shalimar song. Has nothing to do with the movie. But if it did, wouldn't that be something? Anyway, that's it from me. I'm out. Goodbye.